Hello and welcome back to Mirror Interpretation Todorova. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to members. Hello Oksana, thank you for your question. I in fact love this question. I really appreciate it. I have not shared my experience how I started to do the telephonic interpreting. So I will just read the question of Oksana first, which is members. And as you guys know, I'm answering the members' questions in my lives, or if I find them particularly interesting, I do a small video like this one just to share with other people. So Oksana says, "Could you please share your experience working as a telephone interpreter, the odds, your concerns? Because I like to move from face to face to over the phone interpreting. I have no idea what the next call would be yet, and how may you please share your experience? Are you ready to interpret, or were you ready to interpret on the spot? Your concerns and what is when you start to work as a OPI interpreter." So I will share a little bit. My experience with interpreting was very funny. The first time I interpret was when my fiance asked my father to marry me. I know this is very funny because I'm not a person that believe in marriage. It's not like I don't believe in marriage, but this was not the case back then. So I was like 20 years old, and my fiance traveled from USA to Bulgaria, and he wanted to meet my father, and he insisted, and I didn't know what was going on. And we were traveling in the car, and a few months ago, actually, for Christmas, my fiance proposed to me. Imagine I was like 21, completely green. Uh, I didn't know what to say. I just didn't say nothing, and he put the ring on my hand, and that was it. We were engaged. And then a few months later, for April, for the spring break, my fiance was in Bulgaria, and I don't know. We were traveling somewhere. It was in the car, and my I just didn't want to interpret. I remember this very well. It was from English to Bulgarian. I was so pissed because my fiance was making these strange conversations with my father. And this conversation continues usually for a very long time. What you do, what you work. They were having this great chat, and I was the interpreter. And I just hated it. And yeah, I had to interpret my own proposal to my father. Anyway, that's very odd. Even more odd is how my father responded to that, and even more odd is that how this story ends. But so I started this in the beginning like this, which I hated it. But then when I moved to Italy, my actual interpreting as an interpreter simultaneously, it was in the circus. I was working as a simultaneous interpreter. It was from Italian to English and then Russian. So I will do the simultaneous in Italian English, and then I will put the main words whatever comes to my head just in Russian. There was a circus in this five-star hotel where they bring different hogs, animals, dogs, puppies, horses, I don't know. There was this pool, and there was this huge zoo that would come to this five-star hotel to make these performances for the tourists. And I had two challenges in these cases. First off, it was, of course, consecutive because the show goes on and you continue talking. And the second thing that really disturbed me, it was the light in my face and seeing all these people suddenly. When we were practicing the presentation and hello, welcome back to the name of the hotel, it was easy. But when I see all these people staring at me, I have this problem with, I don't know how they call it, but with the crowd. I was like, oh my goodness, I lose my speech. I start to stutter. I was not able to do it. It's because I was constantly I, o, and I was worried. I was worried that I made mistakes. which I think a lot of interpreters we do have. So this sounds funny. My boss make me drink a shot of martini, 100, big one. And there was a music break, and he make me pour it down my throat. And I will tell you that I interpret the entire time, laughing and joking because I forgot about the people. I was just having fun. So I don't tell you to take a shot before you interpret. Don't get me wrong, that was circus, nothing technical. I could joke, I could do anything I want except using like F words, but um I had this shock or panic of the brain to be stuck at a place and to be unable to speak even one word. When something is stuck on your throat, I did experience that. My first experience at the circus. Of course, after this, it was very easy for me. I didn't have any problems to do this. Actually, it was a lot of fun for me and for everybody else around me as well, I guess. So this is how I started, and shortly after that, I started providing simultaneous in a business trade fair, maybe like a year later. And the simultaneous in the beginning also give me this shock of to be ready on the spot, to be ready on the spot. And I think the fact that you don't have time to make it properly and correctly on simultaneous grammatically, it kind of relax me and try and help me to look for the meaning of whatever was the subject, and make me create some structure in my head. And as you guys know, in simultaneous, you hear one, two words and you start speaking on the target language. You continue doing that. You cannot wait to understand the full phrase. You listen words, you interpret. You listen to words, you interpret them. So having the simultaneous, it kind of give me this confidence because I work almost 9 years as a simultaneous interpreter in Italy before I moved here to the USA. And I will tell you, I work in a different fields. It was all business to business. It was international trade fairs. I don't know, fair of tourism, of doctors. I don't know, anesthesia fair. There was so many different things. Ecology, urban waters. I don't know. I interpreted this fair for pump for the petrol tanks in the ocean. They have this special pump that continue pumping if the petrol explode as well. Very, very interesting. I interpret in the fair of chocolate, of ice cream, hotels, interior design. I love this job and I still love it. So I kind of learn, and every time before I go for the trade fair, in the base of the name of it, I will try to read some materials, read about the companies that, of course, there was thousands of exhibitors there, so I was not able to read about them, but the most common things I would try to prepare a little bit. And although I was never there. I would still have new words every time, and not just one but tons of them. So doing this for so long, it kind of make me tick in a way that I know I can make mistake. I know I'm not perfect, right? So I moved to USA in 2016 in Denver, and I had an offer with Circom as an OPI medical. The truth is that I didn't want to do the medical, and they told me, don't worry, it's not going to be only medical. And they give me like 10 other fields that may the calls come from. I said, great. I give them, I was a I am a business major, so I give them where I'm more confident, and I was hoping that my calls will go to where I know best. Well, I was wrong. I remember they did the clearances and they contracted me, and the first few calls I had was emergency. I remember I interpreted for 15 minutes and my head was the drilling, burning, and was ready to explode. And the challenge that I have is that in Italy, in Europe, you explain a lot with your hands, up, down, left, right. We do a lot of gesticulation in Europe. So suddenly I was finding myself trying to gesticulate and trying to explain the words or mimic them as we are used in where I was coming from, especially in Italy. And this was creating a problem for me because I would constantly try to move to express something, but here I was supposed to take notes. And there is the second challenge for me. Normally in the trade fairs where I was doing simultaneous, I would write also numbers, names, or some special thing for business offers, if there was a presentation, but I wouldn't usually take notes because I didn't have the time, except if it's a phone number or something, address number, something, if we talk about some measurements, correct? So here I was, because they told me that you gotta take notes, I felt like I'm obliged to take notes and I have to do it. It's look professional. Yes, I was able in the beginning to do the numbers without the notes and the phone numbers and all that. At least 5 numbers I could do, or 4, but they told me that I have to take notes. And my huge or biggest challenge, it was that I was trying to take every possible notes, and the speaker will stop speaking and I will continue noting, and they're like, hello, interpreter, 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 and I'm like, yes ma'am, so I was so busy taking notes that when they were finishing to render, finishing to speak, I was not starting to render within the 3 seconds, as should be, as by protocols, or by best practices, whatever you want to call it. So my first challenge was to trying to take too much notes. And once I noticed that I had this trouble taking too much notes, I start to experiment with myself not taking the notes at all. So still nowadays there are many calls I can continue hours without notes. Yes. Of course, if there is a lot of terminology and symptoms, I would take notes. And so not taking notes, it helped me recognize where was my weakest part in rendition, because I would need a repetition for numbers and phone numbers, especially if the message is long. In the beginning, of course, you don't know, but in the beginning, I remember that I will try not to take notes. Yes, I remember the name, I remember what we're supposed to do, what procedure, and I have visualizing this, and it was easy for me until the numbers come, or the address, or call me here, or you know what, your BP is that and that number over this. Oh, hi, how? So I recognized that I was needing a repetition with numbers, names, and addresses. Based on this recognition of my personal brain weaknesses, to be perfectly precise, after the speak say the sentence the first time, I learned to take notes on those things that are my weakest part. For example, right now I can take very little notes, and I have almost 99% to 100 precision, because I know where my brain is weak. I learned my body, I learned myself. So too much notes, no notes, and then moderation in note taking. That was the first challenges that I experience on a daily basis, and I will tell you, it probably took me about 3 months to discover a little bit how to manage these things, how to manage those practices there. uh, the second part that was very difficult for me is that I was used to read the person in front of me. This was a big challenge because in business and also in person interpreting, what makes it more easy is that if you do dress professional and you present yourself professionally in the clinic or for people, and you make the effort to look okay, to look presentable, people are not judging you and are not as rude with you. And on the phone, unfortunately, they cannot see that, they don't know that. And I had quite a lot of rude calls and people calling me names, working for Siricom. This is the truth. And when I say names, I mean it, insulting me for a long minute. And when I say that, it means calling me certain names, not 1, 2 times, but continuously for 15 or 20 minutes. So this was the second big challenge when they were calling me stuff, stupid, ignorant. Sometimes I would still make mistake in Russian. They would tell me that I am from the village, shame on me, how dare you. So different things like that. And as once again, I didn't have this self boundary back then with myself to disconnect, which I do create right now, because I noticed that if you listen somebody insulting you for a long period of time, this affects you psychologically and you get into depression and self-doubt. So if you start right now, I would advise you, if the moment that somebody say one or two not complimentary words to you, insulting your slang, your way of expression, or something, politely, I personally believe it's best for you to disconnect, to say, I'm apologizing, I don't feel comfortable with that. May I transfer you to another interpreter? They do have other interpreters. I personally disconnect. This year, the last 2 years, I disconnect one call, to tell you, because I stopped working for Circom, obviously, so other people are not insulting me as much as their customers, but I disconnect one call for different reasons. But I would advise you, especially if you're a beginner, if you're a novice and you feel insecure in yourself, do not stay in calls where you insulted, where you put down, where they call you names and something like that. This is not good for you. Uh, both side. I remember in the beginning I felt like the customer of Sirocom would have these battles. They would try to understand each other because they don't want to spend the money on the interpreter. So they would try to do some broken English with each other, and then to the point when they start to curse with one another, this is when they gonna add me. And getting into those dynamic where both parts speak, the provider, the clinic, and then the client, it was very, I felt more like a moderator than an interpreter because of how angry and offending they were to one another. So if you get into this type of battles, I will call them verbal battles, my advice, having in mind how this may affect you, and also very often if they doesn't give the desired results to the labs, sometimes lab says, is you interpreter, you made mistake, you didn't interpret correctly, and you start to be verbally attacked by one of the sides. Or sometimes I notice the providers get angry because the speaker doesn't answer the question they ask. In either cases, uh, I would consider you to feel free to use the form interpreter speaking. Please, ma'am, speak respectfully. Please, ma'am, do not interrupt me. Please, ma'am, do not shout. Please, ma'am, do not speak together with me. This is the interpreter speaking. Please, ma'am, do not speak with the member. I am unable to take my notes. Or sometimes they will start speaking so fast with this specific terminology. I'm gonna say, please, ma'am, have in mind, interpreter speaking, I am taking notes, and if you'd like me to be precise, I would like you to slow down. I appreciate that. I want to provide a good service for you. But in either cases, do not feel bad to say interpreter speaking. Please, I'm requesting a respect. And if you cannot, I don't feel comfortable to continue. I had very aggressive providers treating me like an animal, literally. Especially for Siracom, it was very bad for me. I gotta be honest with you, it was terrible. I am so grateful that I don't provide services for those people anymore, and I'm so grateful that that was like abuse, like being abused, which means the moment that you pick up somebody screaming there, and you are in the middle of this verbal abuse. This was terrible. So do not feel bad. I wish that you had a good experience with OPI, over the phone interpreting. Mine was bad. And because of that, I believe I learned to set those boundaries. And those boundaries start with you. So if you fail into one of those battles with people like fighting with each other, nagging on each other, or something like that, do disconnect. Do feel free to apologize. Do feel free to disconnect. Do feel free to request not to shout, not to scream, not to speak with you. Um, People that ask you to speak louder, I usually do not do this because I speak many hours and I keep my voice. I said, I'm so sorry, ma'am. The only thing I can do, I can increase the volume of my mic. Do not try to raise your voice because you're gonna lose it. You're gonna start losing it. And this happened to me. Not only I start losing it, but I also start stuttering. This is the truth. So, to avoid having those traumatic effects on you, do feel free to express in a respectful way with the form, hello, ma'am, or sir, this is the interpreter speaking. I am just here to provide these services. May I request you, please? I am gonna try to do my best. May you please? I request one time, I request second time, and the third time I usually disconnect. And these three times would happen. I would not tell you wait this call to call to the extremes. 3 minutes is enough. And if the both side do not try to lower their emotions down and try to understand each other with your help, I would personally advise you not to battle there, because your job is not to make peace but to interpret in peaceful and respectful environment. And if you do not have that, do not hesitate to request respect. Do not hesitate. For example, if back in the past, I remember they would use the words on me, especially Russians, and tell me names and tell me that I'm bad and that I should be ashamed of myself. And I used to feel very bad after these calls because I did study Russian in the university for 4 years. I have diploma right there, so I do know. I am aware that I still make some mistakes with the Padesh, but I think it's normal. Even the Russians do these mistakes. Why I should be ashamed because I studied the language? It's human, right? So, but I was feeling so bad because I was feeling ashamed and like like my dignity was like ripped off of me in a way, especially if they make those comments on you. Now, I had somebody making this a comment on me today. It was a lady, and she was rude to the extreme, not only to me, but to the provider, to the physiotherapist. So I said, I'm apologizing. It's my mistake. Forgive me. Would you like another interpreter? Some people are in pain in medical. Some people are suffering and frustrated, and they're insulting you. It's a way of their sometimes also psychological conditions. So the moment that I let her know, the moment that you let them know that you are not there obligatory and that you can disconnect, for me right now, they usually moderate their way of expression. They're able to control their anger and not call me names because they understand that I can disconnect and drop them alone. This is the truth. I have that because I am a freelance and I can do this. I can say I'm apologizing. I do not feel comfortable. I wish you good luck and I hope you can manage alone. Uh, of course, I said this interpreter speaking first in English, then I addressed that uh, with the Russian members in this case. That was a lot of those bad calls for me. Said that being able to manage the flow of the session, it doesn't only mean when you finish, say end of message, go ahead, ma'am, or sir, go ahead, please, end of message. No, you could say moderating the flow of the session for me also mean to be able to keep the session in the respectful boundaries of human communication, because when they start to curse on each other, this is not communication. This is verbal abuse. So trying to keep those type of hard calls into the form of a healthy conversation, of a healthy ways of expressing. For example, sometimes the people get upset because the bank doesn't want to refund some interest or something like that, and they start cursing you or cursing the bank rep. I am repeating, say I'm apologizing. I understand that this is frustrating. Um, Unfortunately, there is nothing we can do. So trying to make them understand that you're human too and that you tried your best, but you have your own limits. The bank rep have their own limits. So if I see that, for example, the target language speaker get very upset for certain result, I clarify in the target language. I said this is the interpreter speaking. Yeah, I will clarify for you. This rep have these limits and can see only that on things on the computer, can do only certain things. I understand that you guys upset, but there is nothing she can do more. We tried. And then I go back to the provider, if it's a bank, and say, ma'am, this is the interpreter speaking. Interpreter offer clarification that clarify your role as a bank representative with the limits of your profession, apologizing that there was nothing else to do. Just exactly the same thing in English. So this usually helps a lot. This is not a cultural clarification. Sometimes this upsetness and anger between the people, it comes from the different administrative system functions. And that's why you can offer a clarification that is not cultural, but is clarification that it's clarifying the system functionality of the bank, of the rep, of the limits, what we can do or not. This also help the talking about no idea what the call would be like. Yes, this was a big problem for me in the beginning because one is 911, one is banking, one is police. I never, yes, the calls are so mixed. And be ready on the spot. You're never gonna be ready on the spot. I think the moment that you accept that there would be a words that you don't know, this is really going to help you to overcome your own fears and your own insecurities, things that are related to telephone interpreting. The reason why I say that you're never gonna be ready is because I want you to go with the mindset that there would always be something new for you to learn. I do advise the interpreters to have their this is faster to write than a computer, I believe, way faster. Number one, to write with a pen and paper and a notepad. Number two, to have additional device on dictionary. And I don't say one of those dictionary that you can search word, but I'm saying a Google Translator dictionary where you could say the word in English. If you're in English speaking country, the first language should be English. I believe you're in UK, so I advise you to have it English, and then if the second language that versus which you interpret is Russian, Russian. And let's say that you hear the word, I don't know, upper endoscopy in English and you don't know it. If you put endo, the computer will automatically find it for you, endoscopy. And you're gonna see below many words similar, and this was a huge help for me, searching words. You're my member, Oksana, and you could see there is this video called Weekly Vocabulary Challenge. This exercise I did in the beginning. I started 7-8 years ago, 2009, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. This I would tell you, the first times that I start to work, I would have pages of terminology that I didn't know. So once I noticed that my weakest part was the medical terminology, I went online. I do still have those painting. I would call them paintings, but I went online and once a day I study one body system. As I was providing 5 languages, I studied them all in the 5 languages. So I made, let's say, cardiovascular. I made a paper where you could see in some of my medical videos, I paint the heart and with different, put the different parts of it, and then describe what heart is, the main function, and so on in English. The second day I did exactly the same in Russian, then in Italian, then in Bulgarian, and then in Macedonian. 1 hour after work every day. I know this sounds a lot of crazy things that I'm giving you right now, but all these things really helped me. Yes, in the beginning you have to study a little bit more. Uh, I would have the terminology, the specific in English, let's say aorta, and in the below I would write in the target language if it's Italian or Bulgarian or whatsoever. And then I will write a text, what is the aorta, little one row in English, one row in Italian, and like that. And this really helped me studying a 1 page of a body system in once in English and then in the target language. And I would study different system every day. I did this for maybe the first 3 months, and after that I would tell you I felt quite confident. I felt quite well. Also, I did the Bridging the Gap training, the medical interpreter training, which really helped me with the terminology in English. I know that it would sound strange, but believe me, most of the words you probably know on your mother tongue, but you don't know in English. So I focus on study those in English because every time you pick up the phone will be English first. English, English, English. No matter what is the target language, you gotta know those to perfection in English language. This helps a lot. And you don't feel as ready as you say on the spot. You don't always feel ready. You don't always feel like you can do it on the spot. Most important thing is to be calm and be like interpreter speaking. Thank you for waiting, ma'am. I'm checking a word. Usually, while she speaks simple test, if it's endocrinology, I would check the word while she's speaking and I will be able to pick it up, pretty fast. Just being relaxed in the head, basically. So coming from simultaneous consecutive was like kind of real slow for me. Now I learned to moderate myself. Uh, I rarely look words, I would admit to you. I usually don't say wait for the interpreter to check vocabulary, but while she speaks, I would just type and check on my additional device. And when she stops speaking, I would be ready with everything. I normally check words that I'm not sure of. Let's say Macedonian language, I do this quite a lot. Yes, just to make sure, just to make sure. But said that, I think this video shares most of the things that were worrying me. Um, and I believe the last part that remains to be mastered in this field on the OPI, over the phone or telephone interpreting, or even the VRI, but I believe more OPI because they cannot see your facial expression, is a moderation of your voice. For example, I just had a call where a lady insulted me, and I offered to find another interpreter. So I interpret the insult to the provider, and I ask, ma'am, do you like me to try to find someone else? And the provider tell me, no, Joanna, you have been interpreting for us every time I called so far the last 10 days. It's okay with me. She's just having a hard day. So you understand, like, I said, okay, and we continue talking, me with my mistakes, whatever they were. And this call continued for 45 minutes, even if I tried to disconnect it the first 5 minutes. We tried, we tried. And the reason why we were able not to get frustrated is because I learned how to use a calm voice. And I also learned to be very open, expressing. For example, interpreter speaking, ma'am, you don't have to shout. I can hear you. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm taking my notes. Or sometimes the target language speaker is very upset and they don't want to pause and they want to tell you how injustice life is and they want to talk whatever. I do not feel bad to say please pause for the interpreter, and I inform them that I'm writing down everything they're saying, and if they want me to be precise they can slow down. And I just had a call this morning. He wouldn't pause. He was a guy. I normally have ladies that have a problem to stop talking, but this time was a person. It was a male figure, and it was a little bit strange for me. I apologized several times and I asked him to pause, and he did not pause. And so when I see that he didn't pause, let's say he speak 30, 40 seconds, I just start interpreting, and he understands that he have to pause. This is another technique that you can use. OPI can be tricky, but I will tell you, I do love the OPI. I have different systems on different phones, also on the computer. I love and enjoy a lot working from home. I don't want to provide medical in person for different reasons. I don't have a lot of fun with legal either. I love business to business. This is what I love. But said that, this may help you, Oksana. These few things that I share here on the OPI. Last thing, if you have an emergency line like I do, I don't know, I don't think they plug it into you directly, but some people does, and they assume that you will be able to make it. The most important things on the emergency calls is to stay calm. It's not like, so in the beginning when I started receiving emergency call like 6 7 years ago, I would be like so nervous that I would just like shake, and I would be like, I know that it's important that I do everything precise. So for me, that really helped me, it was to walk. I know this sounds crazy. We all are different, but when I got an emergency call, I would immediately jump and walk, and this really calmed my brain. This really helped me to just stay on the call, just stay. They say, okay, 911, this is the operator. They ask the person's name, their address, and sometimes I had these calls when there is a fire or some water explosion or something, and they're screaming, you come, пожар, пожар, пожалуйста. And they scream, the building is burning and somebody may be dying there. And these cultural differences, people sometimes doesn't understand how 911 line or 122 in the UK, I do provide services for them as well right now. So they don't know how this line function. So when they call, they are just like, emergency, come help me right now. They don't understand that they have to say their name, their address, their phone, and this type of things. Or sometimes the panic buttons when somebody fail and hurt themselves, the same thing. Sometimes they're like, help, help, and that's it. And you so when you get to the emergency calls, I believe that most important thing is to find something that is your extreme calmer. Right now, for me, it's this pen that you cannot see it, but I play with it while I speak, and I'm very still here in front of the camera. But the same thing, you imagine you receive this very stressful call. I I do have some. I can show you that you can laugh. but this is something that I noticed that help me, because I don't always get up and run around the room. I do this I do paint things, if you want to call them like that, but I draw lines or circles, especially in emergency call. This really, really calms my brain. I believe because the lobe for drawing, it's make another lobe work of your brain, and so it really calms you down. This is something that helped me with the stress. And the other thing is I have something to play with. Usually it's my pen. Some people have this squeeze things, if you can try those. Or I have seen in some islands people have these rosarios. I don't know if you're Christian or malas or anything little to play with. That can help you calm down. It's a physical things. Usually the tactile exercises, holding into something like this. I use this when I have a simultaneous test and I did 99%, holding into something like strongly. Like this tactile exercises or tactile actions that you hold into something, it really make your brain like stay all together, you know. So there could be a different things for different people, and in a base of your personality and how anxious you may be. Different of those things may help you to feel more calm. One last thing that I advise you, and I do follow this rule, is to have a window where is your office or board, and look outside the window. Look in the distance, look close object, further object, look moving objects. This really helps your brain to calm down. Look on paysages, for example. Just don't, because if you do look on a spot like this, let's say you're looking on a ceiling and the ceiling look like that, your level of anxiety will be growing because you don't have no distraction and your brain is focused on your ansia or your worries. So the moment, let's say you feel anxious and you look and say, oh, what a beautiful flower, your brain react on colors, your brain react on movements, your brain react on trees. Yes, that's why I look for trees, and if I rent a place, I want the trees to be out there. Your plant react on animals and on plants. Your brain reacts on colors, buildings, like just open space. So when I say that, this is a different topic about how your brain react on things and what kind of things may calm or make your brain more anxious. But this kind of suggestions, I noticed that does help with me. That was everything. I hope this video was useful for you, Oksana. I will try to publish it for you next week. I hope you enjoy it, and you write me your comment below. Thank you for being here. And also other members, David, you can ask me a question as well. I could see you're there. Well, I think there are a few more people. So if you guys have a question, you can do like Oksana. You can write it on the comment box, or you can send me an email. I will do a video like this one. If you send me an email, I will probably not, will try to find a time during the week to do it instead of once a month. I hope this was useful. Bye-bye.